Republican Senator John Thune of South Dakota. He serves on the Budget Committee. Senator, let's start with what's on the table. Can you support Harry Reids' plan as it stands right now in the United States Senate?
No, but I don't think that we're that far apart, Chuck. If you take what John Boehner has proposed and look what Senator Reid has proposed, I mean, basically it's a difference between whether or not you're going to deal down the road with the issue of entitlements, which the Democrats don't want to do. But you have to at some point get into the mandatory spending in this deal, and it seems to me at least that right now there's a higher likelihood that something gets struck up here on Capitol Hill. The president's sort of out of the discussions. The speech last night, I think, was primarily political to try and get to the high ground in terms of the messaging war. But for all intents and purposes, this is now a congressional play. And you, I think, diagnosed this correctly a minute ago when you said the calculation right now is what gets 217 in the House and 60 votes in the Senate.
Now, let me ask you this. There's all sorts of speculation that S&P, one of the ratings agencies, basically will come out and say, you know what, the Boehner plan doesn't feel like we may downgrade if the Boehner plan is put into effect because of the various reasons, but including the idea of having another debt ceiling vote in 9 months hanging over the economy. If you're hearing that from a ratings agency, forget the politics of this. Does that make you a little weary of supporting the Boehner version of this plan if you feel like it's going to lead to a downgrade from an important ratings agency like S&P?
I don't know at this point what the rating agencies are going to do. I mean, they have, there's been some reporting out there about what might happen with regard to various proposals that have been out there. But I will say this. I think the rating agencies and the markets right now probably have more leverage. Everybody talks about who has the leverage. Republicans, the Democrats, the president, the Senate, the House. I think right now they're going to have a lot of leverage because they're the ones that are going to sort of bless whatever happens here. Now, that being said, I think, again, that gives more leverage to John Boehner and the House Republicans, who are going to produce a plan. I think we'll see if they get 217 through the House later this week. I think the Reid plan here in the Senate will fail because it won't get 60 votes, and the only plan out there is probably going to be the Boehner plan.
How is it, though, that the rating agencies will look at the Boehner plan? I mean, do you really want to do this in 9 months? I mean, let's be realistic. Is this healthy for not just, forget the politics of Washington, for the economy to have another debt ceiling fight? And look, it's going to be a fight. The idea that it's not going to be is naive. Is that really healthy for the economy?
Well, I think it's not uncommon, as you know. There have been, I think, 38 different times where the debt ceiling has been raised for 6 months or less.
This is a different period. Come on, we know this.
I would rather not have this vote again in 9 months, Chuck, to answer your question. But I don't believe that there is an opportunity between now and next Tuesday to put in place a process that gets us a result. What the Boehner plan does is it addresses the issue of entitlements, deals with mandatory spending, and forces us to deal with that sometime before the end of the year. And the Reid plan doesn't do that. We all know that in order to solve this budget mess, we've got to do something about entitlement programs and the mandatory spending side of the budget. And what the Boehner plan does is it cuts discretionary spending now, caps it, creates an opportunity for a balanced budget amendment vote, and then puts this process in place that forces a result later on in the year. So I think it's got the right elements there. It's got a lot of the elements, honestly, of cut, cap, and balance, which was voted on last week in both the House and the Senate.
Let me ask you quickly about the balanced budget amendment, because there's still, the House apparently hasn't decided which version they're going to introduce, the one that has the supermajority on taxes provision, or one that is described by some as sort of a clean version where you don't put an extra provision in there. You simply say, you got to get a balanced budget, which some anti-tax activists like Grover Norquist believe it could lead to tax increases. Can you support a clean balanced budget amendment that doesn't have the supermajority aspect to it?
I would support the balanced budget amendment that's been proposed in the past that actually back almost 15 years ago now got 66 votes in the United States Senate.
That was the so-called clean version.
That's the so-called clean version. I think a balanced budget amendment, as long as we can get something into the Constitution that imposes a discipline on Congress, is a good thing. Now, what form that takes remains to be seen. You know, we've got 47 Republicans that have endorsed a plan here in the Senate, but if we could pick up 20 Democrats in the Senate on something that actually forces us to live within our means, that's something I'm certainly going to be open to supporting, and in the past have supported.
we're 7 days from what is a Washington-created crisis, frankly, as far as the political debate creating this crisis on the debt limit. Any regret of seeing House Republicans putting this demand that no debt limit increase without these cuts and creating this week of uncertainty, frankly? It's been weeks of uncertainty on this, which, of course, is not healthy for the economy.
I think, though, if you're going to say where does the fault for that lie, these discussions have been going on with the president. The president walked away from something last week, or I shouldn't say walked away from, but demanded an additional $400 billion in revenue. So the whole idea of a big deal went away. The only plan so far that's passed either the House or the Senate, Chuck, is the bill that passed last week in the House. We had the vote in the Senate. It failed. I think that the House has proceeded forward. They tried to work with the president. The president, they couldn't come to an agreement that would get the 217 votes in the House and the 60 in the Senate. And so now they're proceeding down a path to avert a crisis next week. I hope we can do that. We need to do that. It's important for the markets. It's important for our credit rating.
It sounds like you've hinted that maybe House Republicans, have they drawn too hard of a line in the sand in this?
Well, I think you mean on the current Boehner plan?
On the current Boehner plan, yes.
Well, I think that we've got to get this done. And right now, we don't have a lot of options. This is probably the best option on the table. I hope that in the end, there are going to be enough House Republicans to support this to get this thing through so that we can avert a crisis come next Tuesday. But we'll see. I mean, obviously, this is something people feel very strongly. A lot of folks in the House don't believe this will go far enough. But it does put in place a cut, cap, and balance approach, which is something that most House Republicans last week supported.
Republican Senator John Thune from South Dakota, thanks for coming on this morning.
Good morning. Thanks, Chuck.
All right. Well,